Hello, BookTube. I have a little mail haul I want to do for you here. Just a few packages salvaged from the sleet and rain outside. I briefly thought that I was going to be looking much worse. Not all this, but rather the filming. I briefly thought that I was going to have to film on some sort of makeshift older apparatus because I briefly lost my laptop to some muscular teenagers. but there was a window, and I cleared it up, and I'm now able to film correctly. And in the meantime, in the process of reclaiming my domain, I mentioned that I wanted to film videos for my lame ass BookTube friends, and a couple of the boys had never heard of BookTube. The membership here is always shifting. The faces and the names, I have trouble keeping them straight. The cry went up of, what's that? My older friends in the group wanted to know, oh my God, are you still doing that? And all that sort of thing. So I sat down and showed them a few BookTube videos, which is always weird. I don't know if you've done this yourself. It's always weird to share this little world of ours with outsiders. It's always strange. I showed them one video, and their consensus reaction was, dude, that guy's really boring. And that guy was being really boring, so that was absolutely true. I showed them another video, and the consensus opinion immediately was, dude, she's hot. And this is absolutely true. and I showed them a third video, and their consensus opinion was, dude, he looks like a cop. That also is absolutely true. So, although outsiders might not get the finer points of BookTube, they certainly do get us in the main. God knows what their first impressions of this channel would be. But anyway, I reclaimed my filming rig, I believe the kids put it. So we have some packages to go through without any gauzy gelatin or whatever. No cardboard, no boxes. I think yesterday I exhausted my box quotient for the week. But we'll see what we have. It's just 4 packages, so this won't hopefully be a very long video. Oh, great. Okay, this is from Prometheus Books. I requested this, even though it makes me apprehensive, because I have read many, many books like this that do nothing but irritate me. Funny enough, considering how I opened this video. But you'll see what I mean. This is by Julie Albright. This comes out in late March, and it's called Left to Their Own Devices: How Digital Natives Are Reshaping the American Dream. And too often I have encountered in books like this, whether they're written by digital natives or not, just shrieking tone deafness. Just obvious that the writer has only ever interviewed and does not actually know anybody under the age of 20. Whereas I strongly recommend it. And I'm lucky enough often to have it be true in my own case. I have, as I mentioned, I have a steadily evolving and shifting group of friends who are teenagers. So I do know digital natives. And oftentimes I find this kind of book insultingly clueless. But let's see what this I don't know anything about this. This might be one of the ones that pleases me. Let's see, the first line of the pub sheet, keep in mind the pub sheet is not the author, is digital natives are hacking the American dream. Young people brought up with the internet, smartphones, and social media are quickly rendering old habits, values, behaviors, and norms a distant memory, creating the greatest generation gap in history. I might actually agree with that, because this generation gap is actually not a question of the same mechanism but with different focuses, right? Previous generation gaps were, we both like wearing hair if we're men, but you like wearing your hair longer than I like wearing mine. Or we both like rock and roll, but we're going to define this generation gap as the kind of rock and roll that we like. But not ever an actual gap in perception, in the way you actually see reality. So I might agree with that. That sounds like hyperbole on the surface, but I bet that's true. In this eye-opening book, digital sociologist Julie Albright looks at the many ways in which younger people, facilitated by technology, are coming untethered from traditional aspirations and ideals, and asks what are the effects of being disconnected from traditional, stabilizing social structures like churches, marriage, political parties, and long-term employment. A little bit of a straw man there. You're assuming those things are stabilizing. The divorce rate, for instance, in most Western countries was skyrocketing long before the internet, when churches were an integral part of people's lives. So, and I don't think the political parties stabilized. But it's a bit of a straw man. But I guess in a pub sheet for a book like this, you probably pretty much have to. What does it mean to be human when one's ties to people, places, jobs, and societal institutions are weakened or broken, displaced by digital hyperconnectivity? Again, a straw man. It assumes that digital hyperconnectivity does weaken those ties. When that is not in evidence, you're going to have to prove that. You can't just say that. That'd be one of the things that you will be attempting to prove. That's the whole nature of a straw man, or well, let's see. Albright sees both positives and negatives. On the one hand, mobile connectivity has given digital nomads the unprecedented opportunity to work or live anywhere. It's also given the opportunity to see and know anything at any time, which is, again, both positive and negative. They don't have to store knowledge, but they're also experts at what to find, what they need to know, how to do it. But new threats to well-being are emerging, including increased isolation, anxiety, and loneliness, decreased physical exercise. That one's been true of every alleged generation gap. That was being said in the 60s about kids in the 60s by their parents from the 50s and 40s. You don't exercise at all. Ephemeral relationships, fragmented attention spans, and detachment from the calm of nature. In this time of rapid, global, technologically driven change, this book offers fresh insights into the unintended societal and psychological implications of lives exclusively lived in a digital world. Okay. All right, well, okay, on the pub sheet anyway, keep in mind, the pub sheet's not the book, but on the pub sheet I'm hearing a lot of familiar stuff. A lot of infuriating straw men, including that last one, because you're assuming as part of your contention that these people are disconnected from the world. The digital natives are disconnected from the world, when you would have to prove that. And I don't also trust, I know that the statistics, all those statistics from iGen or whatever, books like that unhappiness, that loneliness, that feelings of social isolation are skyrocketing. I have looked at some of those studies, and I don't, I think there's a lot of data massaging going on there, a lot of conclusion massaging. The one thing, one part of those straw men that I definitely agree with is that bit about fragmenting attention span. My boys, I don't think that they're any lonelier, that they have any greater sense of isolation from the real world. They certainly don't lack for physical exercise, but they cannot concentrate. At least now, I firmly believe that the muscle is there, and that they could exercise that muscle until they were able to concentrate, but they absolutely cannot do it now. It's just not there at all. The ability to concentrate, or even the ability to see the worth in concentrating on one thing, for any longer than, I don't even know, 5 minutes at the most, is just alien to them. They don't have any concept of what that is. Same thing is that they don't have any concept of privacy. They don't have any idea what that means. It's not that they know what the previous generation thought of privacy and they disagree. It's that they don't even know what it is. They've never experienced it. So those things make books like this just fascinating for me. I will gobble this right up. I won't wait until it's pub date before I read it, because I gobble them up anyway, even though a lot of them frustrate me. Because I see that generation firsthand every week, and that makes it personal. That gives it a lot of import to me. Oh, fantastic. Oh, I tell you, book publicists are the nicest people. I got a copy of Holly Black's The Cruel King, her sequel to the Cruel Prince, or The Wicked King, which is her sequel to The Cruel Prince, which is this thing that just took off like a bottle rocket. And I knew that I had The Cruel Prince once upon a time, but when I got the sequel, I could not find The Cruel Prince to save my life. And I want to reread it, because The Wicked King is very much a sequel. It very much plays on everything from the first book. It's not like a jump on point. So I bashfully asked if I could have a copy of The Cruel Prince. So there it is. Great. Fantastic. That's another thing I will get to right away, because I want to read The Wicked King right away, and I don't want to read it until I've read the first book. I don't want to be playing catch up. So let's see what this next one is. Nice and heavy, whatever it is. Okay, this next one is due in April. It's a name that's familiar to those of you who are longtime viewers of this channel. This is Possessed by Memory, The Inward Light of Criticism by Harold Bloom. So what have we got here? In arguably his most personal and lasting book, no way to know if it's lasting, no way to know at all, America's most daringly original and controversial critic gives us brief, luminous readings of more than 80 texts by canonical authors, texts he has had by heart since childhood. Gone are the polemics. That will be the day. Gone are the polemics. Here instead, in a memoir of sorts, an inward journey from childhood to 90, Harold Bloom argues elegically with nobody but Bloom, interested only in the influence of the mind upon itself when it absorbs the highest and most enduring imaginative literature. He offers more than 80 meditations on poems and prose that have haunted him since childhood, and which he has possessed by memory, from the Psalms and Ecclesiastes to Shakespeare and Dr. Johnson, Spencer and Milton to Wordsworth and Keats, Whitman and Browning to Joyce and Proust, Tolstoy and Yeats and Delmore Schwartz and Amy Clampett, Blake to Wallace Stevens, and so much more. And though he has written before about some of these authors, these exegeses, written in the winter of his life, are movingly informed by the freshness of last things. It's a little depressing. And then the pub sheet goes on to quote the author at length. They don't usually do that. One of my concerns throughout Possessed by Memory is with the beloved dead. Most of my good friends in my generation have departed. Their voices are still in my ears. I find that they are woven into what I read. I listen not only for their voices, but also for the voice I heard before the world was made. My other concern is religious, in the wildest sense. For me, poetry and spirituality fuse as a single entity. All my long life I have sought to isolate poetic knowledge. This also involves a knowledge of God and gods. I see imaginative literature as a kind of theurgy, in which the divine is summoned, maintained, and augmented. Okay, Harold. Good on you. All right, well, okay, so this comes out in April, and it is going to be, the pub sheet almost makes it sound like this is a departure, but this has actually been his last couple of major books. This is going to be him going through his favorite literature at 90. So I'm hoping that the book does not stress that, winter of our discontent type attitude. That's a little depressing to be reminded on every page that the author doesn't have long before he drops off the twig, and then this is what these are his last thoughts on this literature. But I guess that in a way could be a daring book. One way or another, a big thing like this I wouldn't miss. This is Harold Bloom also has a couple of other books coming out this year that I don't know if you've seen them in your bookstores. He also has these thin single play studies of Shakespeare. He just had one on Macbeth that just came out, and then this will be, I think, his next book. But I think he has a couple of those Shakespeare studies also coming out this year. But this is a big thing. This will get reviewed everywhere, including by yours truly. And then we'll do this last one, and we'll be done. See what we have here. This is a grim and gray day here in Boston. It's not particularly chilly, but it's on and off sleet, which means no dog walks. Frida's not interested in going out in any weather that looks like this. We go to the back door, to the launch pad. It's a great relief to me. For years, it was a great relief to me because the back door is there's just one little step to the ground. And when you have a basset hound, that's a great relief. And then at the end, not only did I have a basset hound who could not walk even that, I had to help her up and down even that one step, but my pointer, my beautiful Malin Moore, she had a degenerative disease, started to lose muscle mass in her hind legs to the point where at the end of her life, they were water. The front of her body was keeping her going and keeping her directing, and the back of her body, we were just lucky that she was able to stand upright as opposed to just dragging that part along. So she could not do stairs at all, even with one stair. So that single launch pad was a great relief for a long time. Now, Frida doesn't need that at all. She's just a ball of energy. But she pauses on that step to sort of take in the world with her eyebrows and her ears, her antenna up, and if she notices the least hint of inclement weather, then she just cancels the whole thing. And unlike other dogs I've had who didn't like the rain or the snow or sleet or whatever, but would knuckle down and go out in it anyway, she categorically refuses. She will not do it. So we just don't. But anyway, what's this next one here? Do you want to see your fans? I'm talking about you. You might as well see them, huh? They like you more than they like me. There's the baby bean. She is. There's the baby bean. Yes. They're all your friends. They like you. Well, I like you too. Yes, I do. Let's see. Oh, great. Okay. Oh, fantastic. All right. This is from St. Martin's. I requested this. It's a subject that I'm very interested in. This comes out already. It's basically out already. This is by Tony Platt, and it's called Beyond These Walls, Rethinking Crime and Punishment in America, where the penal system is an absolute disgrace. Beyond These Walls, the author is a Berkeley professor. Tony Platt this is an ambitious and far-ranging exploration that tracks the legacy of crime and imprisonment in the United States from the historical roots of the American criminal justice system to our modern state of over-incarceration, and offers a bold vision for a new future. Platt, recognized authority in the field of criminal justice, challenges the way we think about how and why millions of people are tracked, arrested, incarcerated, cataloged, and regulated in the United States. Beyond These Walls traces the disturbing history of punishment and social control, revealing how the criminal justice system attempts to enforce and justify inequalities associated with class, race, gender, and sexuality. Prisons and police departments are central to this process, but other institutions, from immigration and welfare to educational and public health agencies, are equally complicit. I find it amazing that this guy found enough people to talk with him in order to make this book. The author argues that international and national politics shape perceptions of danger and determine the policies of local criminal justice agencies, while private policing and global corporations are deeply and undemocratically involved in the business of homeland security. Yeesh. Okay. All right. So the author, I assume, has some proposals for what to do. Wow. Okay. Well, it's a tough subject. I have a great number of proposals myself for what to do about the American criminal justice system, especially in the 21st century, when everything that Americans do is tracked and monitored at all times. My unconventional view of the American criminal justice is, first of all, there's so much profit in it, both legal and illegal, that it's going to take a miracle to revamp it. But in my opinion, physical incarceration, actually taking away someone's physical liberty and penning them up behind bars in an institution where that's where they stay, that should be restricted only to people who are completely dead bang guilty, convicted of violent crime, and not anything else. Nothing else, including theft, including anything like that. Nothing but violent crime should warrant physical incarceration. There are all kinds of penalties that you can lay down on someone, more so every day in the 21st century, that don't have anything to do with physically incarcerating people. And if you didn't have people just being physically incarcerated willy-nilly, blindly, and often guided, as that pub sheet mentioned, by previously existing bigotries, if you didn't have that, then you wouldn't have the massive overcrowding, you wouldn't have anything like that, and you wouldn't have the barbarism. The American criminal justice system makes people worse. Except for drastically rare exceptions, it makes people worse. You go in for a certain amount of time, and you come out worse. You come out someone who's not only been brutalized, but who wants to brutalize others, who will almost certainly not make good on their freedom. Which is why recidivism rates are so off the charts in so many different demographics in America. Instead, if you are guilty of a white-collar crime, if you are guilty of embezzlement, if you are guilty of theft, something like that, something that's non-violent, something that's just an abrogation of the law, there are all sorts of other things. An unbreakable ankle bracelet, social monitoring, social decrediting put just a mark on your social credit standing that you cannot get a debit card, for instance, or that something like that. You could be made to pay for those crimes in 80 different ways other than simply arresting you and putting you in a cell with a guy who raped and tortured his girlfriend to death. That cannot have a good outcome. It's not good for you, and it's not good for society. And yet, American penal justice system too often unthinkingly does just that. And it's not necessary anymore. It might have been necessary once upon a time, but not anymore. There are all kinds of ways for the government to punish you as an erring citizen that don't have anything to do with arresting you and incarcerating you behind walls. But anyway, one way or another, that means I'm deeply invested in this subject. So this is fascinating to me, and it's out already. So this goes right to the top of the docket. In fact, a lot of these things I'm really interested in. So we have Behind These Walls, a look at the history of incarceration in America, and maybe a healthy dose of prescriptions for what to do. Then we have Possessed by Memory by our old friend Harold Bloom. This is it looks like a big farewell, a big envoy to his reading life. I think that's a bit of a shame. If you've written a book like this, what reason do you have to stick around? I might have my issues with Harold Bloom, but I want him to stick around for another decade. What's he going to do then? If that happens, you can't write another one of these books. So we'll see. We'll see what it's like. Then thanks very much to the publicist. I have The Cruel Prince, so I can start on that right away and then go on to The Wicked King. And Left to Their Own Devices, the latest study of digital natives, the aliens who walk among us, and who I showed BookTube. I showed them 3 randomly chosen videos, and their first impressions of all 3 of those videos were completely correct. So maybe I'll show them 3 more tomorrow and see if their record holds up. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up for now and try and convince my little baby to go outside. I'll try. We'll see what happens. In a battle of wills, I often lose, but I'll give it a try. And maybe I'll be back later. There might be other things to talk about. In the meantime, I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.